Button up your overcoat, it's China Spoilers. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of China Spoilers, a weekly podcast where we talk about making a movie while we live in China. I am your host, Emily, and with me as always is Peter. We are coming to you live to tape from lovely whoopwu studios in Luzhou, Sichuan, China. And today's topic is keeping a big project all in your head all at once. But first, let's get started with a little How's Your Uncle? So I've been back in China for 1.5 weeks from America.
How much already?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I got back on a Thursday morning, so a week and some. Yeah. And we've been getting out and about, and the weather, it's... in typical Luzhou fashion, it was super, super hot, and then yesterday it rained.
Bang.
And now it's going to be cold and rainy for the next 2 months. But that's good news for us. It's no longer too hot to leave the house. And we've already been getting out some. We went to our favorite pork rib restaurant for dinner, for our anniversary dinner. And it was delicious. It's a pork rib.
How many anniversaries?
9. We've been together. We've been married 9 years. And this place is famous in Luzhou. They serve a delicious spicy pork rib on a shovel.
Very shishi.
It's very shishi. It's very because the design of the restaurant when it first opened, our friend Andrea calls them kung fu restaurants because they're very old China decor and the waiters.
Even though it's in an apartment style modern building, it's the walls are all fake logs.
Yeah, and it just is like themed to look very old China, and the waiters would wear these costumes, and it was fun. But the shovel aspect of it, I've heard Chinese friends say no, that's not a thing. But I guess it's just people serve stuff in weird dishes.
Well, it kind of looks like something...
Creative plating is always a...
Yeah, it looks like New York-y.
Yeah.
Something to do.
Yeah, and it comes with these skinny little French fries underneath that absorb all the spicy juices.
So nice.
It's so good. It's our favorite place. It was the first place when we moved away for a year and came back. That was the first place we went when we came back. And it is often the first place we go when we travel other places.
And it was here... It didn't come here until after we came here.
Yeah.
And so we were afraid it was going to close this entire time. Until to this day. Every time before we go, we're like, make sure we call ahead.
Still open.
Because that's a Luzhou and China thing.
Yeah, stuff just is gone.
Yeah, just to make
no
sure
warning,
but it keeps
no
sticking in there.
And they had a recent remodel, too. 2 years ago, remodel. But it looks good.
It used to be, there was more of a costume themed kind of thing going on.
Yeah, they've kind of dialed back on the costuming and the styling of the room itself is kind of toned down.
The staff was a lot of more maybe college kids, maybe high school kids, I don't know, because they used to be a lot more playful and now they're all professionals and buttoned up.
Yeah, it's very serious. And the it's just like a shirt from the restaurant. It's not any kind of special.
Yeah, they used to the kids would all wear them wild pirate style.
Yeah. But they looked like martial arts fighting might break out at any moment, but now they look like waiters. Which is fine.
It takes away a little bit of the fun, but it's still a riotous fun because it's so busy.
Yeah.
It's a popular place, and it's a popular and not in a shishi way. It's definitely table party fun.
That's where people go to celebrate fun things.
And the food has not gone downhill.
Yeah. And the big change they made was they used to have a menu that had pictures, which was helpful. I've changed my stance on menus with pictures in China. I used to be all the time against them, but it's been very helpful sometimes in China. But so now they don't have that menu anymore. You come in, they have like the wall by a kitchen with the ingredients of a dish that is going to be prepared. So some of the dishes, like, they don't look like what they look like as raw ingredients, so you kind of have to like guess. Like there's one of the tofu ones we looked at that was like the cake of tofu with the vegetable medley on the side is actually like a stew I saw on someone else's table, and it doesn't look like a stew pre-cooked. But so you go and you look at the dishes and you take a card and then you give all the cards of all the dishes you want to your waiter, and then that's how you order. Which
sounds like all cafeteria and whatnot.
Yeah. But the food is not. The food is really high quality.
It's all fresh and fresh made, which probably one of the reasons why it changes so often from whatever stock menu that you have. That it's just not there sometimes. So
yeah, I guess this is their way of like, we have this instead of, there would be certain dishes on the menu we'd order all the time and they'd be like, oh, we don't have that. And like, when do you have that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's stop putting out this menu that says we have this, because we don't.
Yeah, which is another one of those Western things that we got used to pretty quickly. You go to your restaurant because you know you want this meal, and you go there and they don't have it, and you're like, what kind of restaurant?
Yeah.
But it's the kind of restaurant that serves fresh food.
Yeah, well, I'd also say Chinese menus are, in general, bigger than fine dining menus would be in America.
Yeah, there's... Well, and people say the more culinary minds that I've seen around here are like to brag how the Sichuan in particular, but Chinese food all overall has like maybe more dishes than any other cuisine. There's stuff that we've never even come close to imagining at this point, even after all these years.
Yeah, well, like even just today we went out with friends for lunch and we had this meatball smashed flat and then like wrapped in a phyllo paper dough or rice paper and then like sprinkled.
I'm gonna take one quick break here.
Yeah.
And either don't look at me.
Okay.
Or, because jumping around here is just, you look weird in the camera going like.
I know. It's hard. It's hard just to talk to a lens.
I know.
Okay.
I agree. Should we change anything or?
No, I'll just try to like. This is your nose.
That's me. Because I'm looking straight at you, so it's funny. But I'm looking at you going.
I was trying not to do that too.
It's not a new studio, but we're constantly making changes.
Well, the setup is always changing. I mean, so every week I'm in a slightly different place.
Yeah. And
usually I can look right at you, but...
Well, we've tightened things up a little bit here, trying to get a more streamlined focus of everything working.
Well, we've been bringing the microphone in closer and closer to both of us, which I think is good.
It has worked for the sound, I think.
All right. Well, and that's a tech interlude.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about food.
Yeah, we said a lot about food.
Okay.
What's next?
I also, before I went to America, so this was a big deal. Before I went to America, at my gym, they surprised me with a boxing trial class for one of my regular classes. And then I went, and it was like super fun. And then afterwards, they're like, buy a full year of lessons, and it's really expensive. You should buy it now, and you should put some money down now. Buy them all. It's really fun. And so I was like, oh, okay, I had fun. Okay. And then like my whole vacation, I was like, that was such a mistake. That's too much money to spend, even for a full year. It was a lot of money.
Did they get you before or after the workout?
After. So I'm also like all dazed and like. Oh, I'm full of adrenaline from boxing, but exhausted from boxing.
and you want some more boxing.
Yeah, and then so like all the time I was in America, I was like, oh, I made such a mistake. How am I going to fix it? And then I did like, a little CBT on myself, cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, they cannot make me take boxing classes. They cannot come to my house, force me to come to the gym, and make me take boxing classes I don't want to take. So that helped. And then when I got back to China, I kind of put off. I decided I want the money back, or I want to not pay the money for boxing lessons I'm not going to take, but I would be happy if they use that money to pay for more of my regular lessons that I do take.
Because you don't want to lose the place. You like the place.
Yeah, I like the place. I don't want to walk away from the down payment I put down, but I do want to keep going there, and I don't want to pay the rest of the money to take boxing lessons. And then I was really nervous about this, and so I had one of my coworkers, my Chinese coworkers, came with me. I said for language, but it was really for moral support. Because she doesn't really speak English, so at the school I explained to her what I wanted to happen, and then she relayed that to them, and then even my trainer to her was like, "Oh, are you the translator?" And she's like, "No, I don't translate, but I know the situation." Because I had just told her. And after the fact, it was language-wise, I could have handled it, but I was really happy to have had someone on my side, because I'm nervous and people easily can sell me things. So I ended up putting a down payment on boxing lessons in the first place. But it all worked out, and then so I felt good. And then it turned out, when I got back from China, I hadn't done any writing because I was so nervous about that. And then that evening, I was like, okay, I'm ready. So it turns out when I'm stressed out, I can't write. But resolving that stress really, immediately.
Plus, also you said the boxing was just rough on like your joints and.
Oh yeah, it was like really fun while I was doing it, and then the next like 4 days, like I get sore after working out. I know what that's like, but I was just like incredibly sore, and like my forearms hurt massively, and my wrists didn't feel that great either, and that it was like joint pain I didn't think would be so great. I mean, I did Google boxing and arthritis. The big thing with boxing, surprise, surprise, is head injuries and concussion. So that's like what came up when I looked up medical stuff about boxing, which also I don't want concussion, so I don't know. Maybe one day when we're rich.
And you're younger and stronger.
I'm younger, yeah. Maybe I'll do, I don't know. It was fun, and I've always wanted to try some kind of fighting. But as another negative, I don't have depth perception, so like that's kind of tricky. That's why I've quit every sport I've ever done, because it's really hard. It's really hard to play tennis if you can't tell like where the ball is.
Can't aim at things.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's for the best that I'm not taking boxing, and it was like one of those things. I'm sure that other people have this. It's not just me as a lunatic. That like when you worry and you worry and you worry, and then something occurs to you. In this case, it was like, I don't have to take boxing lessons. And then like, everything feels relieved. And then you're like, that's a consensus. That's a bodily consensus that this is the right choice. So, yeah.
Well, maybe also something similar like wushu or something like that would be easier on your body down the line.
It might be less expensive too, because it's like.
Because that was a big thing too. Is they just installed a like boxing ring.
Oh yeah, this is their special thing, and they were putting pressure on me because like the guy from the Beijing office in charge of the boxing program was signing people up, and they're like, he really wants you to sign up now. And I'm like, can we talk about this after I get back from America? Now! And like usually. This is the most pressure they've ever given me. I like this gym because they don't put pressure on me normally. Like even for the private training lessons I do, I approach them. They never approached me until I like said that I was interested. So in general, they're pretty chill, but this was just like, hey, it's a good idea to give us a lot of money right now to sign up for this program for a full year. So. Which,
I mean, it's a new program. The boss is there. You can't blame the guy too much because that would be pretty awesome to restart a new program. Yeah. And here's a foreigner in town that's.
And I think the
Up there
trainers
punching
like
away.
doing the boxing. I think they have fun too.
Mm-hmm.
I think like I can tell my trainer enjoys his job, but it is definitely his job to like make me do sit-ups. But I think for boxing, that's like fun and exciting for them too.
Right.
And it's fun. The ring is like right in the middle of the gym, so you can see other people doing it, and it looks super cool. It feels super cool in the moment. Afterwards, I was totally wrecked.
You're all stage front and
Yeah.
front of everybody.
But yeah, so in another life, I was a boxer. In this one, I'm just the lady who does sit-ups.
The lady who denied boxing.
Yeah. But yeah, because that was the thing when I was like at Maximum Worry. Like, they can't make me pay the rest of this money for the boxing, and they can't make me come to boxing lessons I don't want to come to.
So it's a big win on your part.
Yeah, so I win. And then I stood up for myself with the help of teacher Sonia came with me. So thank you. And then quick updates on basil and Rubik's. The basil's still growing, and I'm hoping, because Luzhou fall weather, it's so rainy, but it doesn't actually get cold for another couple months. So I think we got like 2 more months of basil. And I'm going to say it publicly so I follow through. I want to see if I can make a pesto. Because we keep putting it on pizza that we order from a Western restaurant, which feels like cooking, but it's not. But it is like super delicious to have fresh basil on a pizza.
Yeah.
But if I could make some pesto, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. Do we need to order pine nuts? Or do they have pine nuts in town?
I don't know if they have pine. They do, because I think I bought pine nuts once and we didn't eat them.
Yeah, I think we didn't. I mean, we know what to do with them, but we didn't know what to do with them.
We had the one meal and then we didn't finish the bag.
Because there was a point, was it just mint, or was it also basil that we were confused as to we might have seen around town? Which we may have seen mint around.
No, the mint definitely wasn't till after we came back from Lijiang. There was no mint. I think it was parsley.
Yeah.
Because we'd see cilantro everywhere, and then we'd be like, is that parsley? And then it's not parsley. Although we had parsley at lunch today.
Yeah.
I don't know. These are different herbs. Around town.
They weren't here, and then they were here. That was the first big benefit of we just finding cilantro, and then finding that it's in everything here was just like a celebration of.
Oh yeah.
Because we were saying goodbye to Mexican food. We're like, we're not going to get a taco anytime soon, or any kind of fresh salsa. Mm-hmm. And then we started seeing cilantro on everything, and we're like, this is just a different kind of pot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Different kind of spice, but with that same kind of cilantro.
The cilantro works equally well.
Maybe better. No. Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. And then Rubik's. I think I said last week I got the new Rubik's brand Rubik's Cube. I've been working with it this week. And it's definitely not as fast as my other cube. What I like about it, I'll show you, is that it does have sharper corners, which gives it like cleaner lines. So it looks cool and it looks like nice and like a retro design object. But the turning isn't as smooth. And then like with the rounded corners, what you get is like, it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, but you could still make that turn. I mean, I did there, but with a rounded corner, it can be even more severely out of line, but you could still move it. So you can go faster. So I don't like the movement of this one, but I do like the appearance. But I think I'm going to actually order one of the special speed cubes from online, which are all Chinese brands, so that it will be not actually that hard to get. And so I think they're like super cheap. I think they're cheaper than an actual Rubik's. Like this one was 100 kwai, which is about almost $20. I think the other ones are like half that.
It's weird for Rubik to not actually go into the market of doing that.
They do sell a speed cube that's different. This is like the classic design. They have made a concession to that market, but they are widely acknowledged not to be the good one for speed cubing. Yeah. This is such like a weird, nerdy little rabbit hole I'm digging myself into, but I love it. I think it's.
Do they have like little like fingerless gloves or anything that you can?
With like Rubik on the knuckles. Yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like gloves would get in the way of your hands.
With the fingerless ones, then you just fingertips to like.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably won't find out. Dismissing that suggestion.
No knee pads or a helmet.
But so that's the ongoing nerderies of my life. Let's go on to channel business. All right. So last week we reported about our hard drive failure, and this week I got a notice from Chinese customs that our replacement drive, our backup drive that was backed up to the cloud, is in Shenzhen. So I sent them a bunch of documentation to say like, this is mine, it's for personal use, blah, 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 blah. So it's supposed to arrive on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that's exciting. And then we're using this opportunity of crash to sum up last week, our big drive with all our current projects on it failed, and we lost all that data. But it's backed up, so that's what's coming to us. And then we're going to use this to set up an archiving system, which we always have talked about, but we have never actually followed through on. A way to keep our archives organized, so that if there is stuff we need to access from the past, it's there and we can get to it and we know where it is. But we will have focus more on like, this drive is for working projects only, and this is, keep it all organized. Because as you put it, the way we're currently working is, okay, so here's what we're working on the desk. Okay, we're done with it. Sweep it off the desk onto the floor and leave it in a big pile, which, as we have more and more footage, that is less and less sustainable.
Yeah, we used up a lot of space so far in the last year.
And part of it is like the nature of the projects we're working on. Some of them do grab historical footage from our past, and we do have the potential, being in Luzhou for 8 years and continuing to be in Luzhou and filming, to have like a big body of work that shows Luzhou changing over time. So we don't want to actually lose that to disorganization. We want to be able to say like, this is 𝗣𝘂𝗎 Square in 2011 and this is 𝗣𝘂𝗎 Square in 2021, and like there's potential for really interesting things to be done there, but we do then have to be careful about how we store that raw footage and which raw footage we keep and which raw footage we delete. Because this is also the problem with the digital age, is you could film everything and keep everything, but it gets huge. Like the episodes of just this, the talk show, because we're filming 2 cameras, full resolution,
plus the microphone, zoom.
Yeah, it's just huge. And so, we decided like the live show, once we have it produced and we have the episode locked, we're never going to need raw footage of us just talking. That's not in the episode. And because we also don't edit out, there's not stuff we talk about that we edit out. So it doesn't actually make sense to keep raw footage, which is good because these files are huge, like I'm saying. But so we did use the crash to take something positive from it. We used it to kind of rethink our whole organizational and archive system, which is, we could use that.
Is that the reason why talk shows, newscasts and stuff are, unless somebody videotaped them from the 80s, like we don't tend to see, if it was like on like Johnny Carson or something from 1968, then you might have a commercial left over, but a lot of like archive stuff like that, you just never...
Like from the actual episodes?
Yeah. Or your local news or something like that. Like people must just throw that away.
Yeah, I mean, you're generating so much
Or can you tape over that
product.
film?
I don't know about that. Like, does News 12 Long Island keep its daily broadcasts?
Right. Back in the old days or today.
Rolando,
if you know.
Rolando could tell you.
Yeah.
One of our friends who we used to work with is big into preservation. Yeah, I don't know, actually. I mean, there must be some kind of archive of that stuff because there's archival footage.
Yeah.
That gets used in news and videos.
I wonder if there's somebody who that's movies. Their job. Like after the news that week, they sit down and go like, okay, there was terrorist attack here.
Right. Well, I think like if you look in the credits of movies that use archival footage, they thank certain archives. So there is.
That's true.
It's not like. I don't know if NBC keeps its own archive, but there is like the Getty archive. Which Getty is a photo organization that your news organization can buy photos from them to print them.
And they might even do they video or is that?
They do video now too, and they have stock images too. Stock photography is always hilarious. But yeah, so that's our current working, and kind of we've decided our priority before we start launching, because we have so many ideas, but before we start launching a million new project is let's actually start from a clean virtual desk and then try to keep it clean. So that's the priority right now is the archiving and little things here and there.
And yeah, it's always easier said than done. The amount of work that it takes to just maintain all these files.
This is why people are professional archivists, because we've found like several schemes look good on paper, sound good when we talk them out, and then we just don't use them, or they don't work the way we thought they would.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of trial and error of what doesn't work.
Yeah, there's definitely offices that I've worked in where somebody has worked out for months a certain plan of this goes in that bin and that goes in that bin, and they sit down and have a big meeting. And everyone goes like, okay, that sounds great. Everyone walks away and then never puts it in any of the bins.
Yeah.
And then like 2 months later, somebody's like, we got to do that. Let's have another meeting.
Yeah.
Everyone put it in the right bins. Everyone goes, yes. And then like a year later, you've got to look at it and go like, this isn't a system that works. Let's revamp.
And part of that is user error of you have to make it part of your workflow. The project isn't finished until it's archived.
Sure.
And I would say that has been a large part of our failing. Yeah. But there is also the factor of like it's just poorly designed, so it is more difficult to interact with than not interacting with it and letting a problem pile up.
Yeah.
So I guess we've had both problems plaguing us.
It's always the pile up. It's the same thing like in your daily life, like with your dishes. Like you could wash your dishes after you eat, and you're all set until tomorrow. Or you could let them pile up, and at the end of the week, you got no dishes.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I was single, I only had like one of each dish.
Which is a great part about, especially being a foreigner in China. Most kitchens, especially foreigner kitchens, how many people live here? How many plates you got? Yeah,
we have two of most things right now.
It feels like you're living like some kind of like single hobo.
Yeah, which we had some people over for dinner once. Some students came over, and they actually cooked us dinner. It was nice, but we had to go borrow dishes from next door so that we could all eat. And then it was weird that we didn't invite our neighbor, but she didn't mind. She had her own friends over. But let's go on to homeschool film school.
All right.
Okay, so. We've got the mini-series. We're working on writing and development right now. And as of this week, I have at least outline, if not full incomplete drafts. It's still a mess, but the whole story is pretty much laid out from episode 1 to episode 6. And so the next step that I am undertaking is to kind of look at the thing as a whole, all episodes, to see what's missing and what the next writing needs to be. And this is proving very tricky. Because it is, at this stage, it's a bunch of good ideas next to each other, which is better than a bunch of bad ideas next to each other. But, like, there's not a cohesive flow yet, and there is, like, continuity inconsistencies in who appears when and how close of friends they are for how often they appear in the series. There's, like, a best friend character who does not appear at all in any of the scenes, so I maybe have to reconsider whether she's the best friend, and stuff like that. So what I've done, this is the approach I've taken, and here, this is like all new territory for me, so this is just, you can think of this as my experiment. It's definitely not advice, but this is what I've been doing. So I've been going through the episodes and writing down the log line for each scene, like where it takes place, who's in it, and then a one-sentence description of the action, with an eye towards, like, what is the purpose of this scene? Because there are some scenes that have, like, atmosphere for days, but I can put atmosphere into any scene. What I need is, like, what's plot-wise occurring in the scene, and is it necessary that it happens here? And so I can look and see, I've done 3 of the episodes this week, way I've put down on cards of, like, the structure we're going for is opener, act 1, act 2, act 3, closer. And so I do the cards accordingly. And I have different color cards for the A and B stories, which is helping me also see that some episodes, the A and B stories are not clearly defined, and some episodes, they kind of intertwine in a way that it remains to be seen. It might be that's what they need to do, or it might be that that's a mistake. But so I'm laying out these cards, and I physically lay them out on the floor so I can see, like, okay, we have 8 scenes in the pilot, and then we have 22 scenes in episode 3. So, like, something needs to be adjusted for that all to balance. And this is a very, like, I think it's still creative in that it's making decisions about, I don't know. It's still creative, but it's not like imagining scenes. It's more about the methodical work of, like, making the structure work and making everything fit in the right place. So it feels like more of a mathematical problem than a writing problem, but then once the math is solved, it will turn back into a writing problem, if that makes any sense. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh. And I think...
I'm just marveling.
So I'm in the middle of that, and it's hard because once I'm going page by page through the script just to see what's happening, and then it is like I am tempted to dive in and fix things right now while I'm looking at the script. But I think for these purposes, it would be like putting together an IKEA bookshelf, and as you're laying out the pieces, being like, oh, this goes here, let me screw this in for the final screw. So that join will look good, but then it might be misaligned with the rest of everything else. So my instinct is to fix stuff, but I'm shying away from that in order to this is a survey of what we have. And that I don't want to actually make any changes until I can have the whole in front of me. Which is a big job. I've never really worked on the scale before.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, the most of my writing experience is like 300-word articles for the newspaper we worked for, which was always about, like, keep it short. And I've written slightly longer stuff. I've written novel manuscripts, but I haven't finished them. I mean, like, I've finished the plot, but I have not gone back and edited it into something cohesive as a whole.
Well, I've noticed you do keep going back and forth between having a lot of getting a lot into the story, writing a lot, and then taking it out, and then writing a lot again, and taking it out.
Yeah. And I think I think some of that might be an experience, and some of that is just how I work, is that I need to maximize the full picture and then zoom in on the specifics that I need. Mm-hmm. Like I even was saying earlier today to you of, like, when I start a scene, thinking it through, I have to have everyone walk in and say hello to each other. And then maybe I even have to write down, hello, 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 hello. And, like, it's maddening while I do it. And then it's never going to make it into the final draft. But I need just to visualize everyone coming into the space together, because I know that's how that would happen in real life, and then visualize the scene playing out until I get to, like, the juicy bit that's what goes in the script.
Do you think, like, I mean, it sounds like you're literally introducing your characters to each other. Like,
and kind of introducing them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like I've got, with the first rough draft, I've gotten a good handle on that, and so now it is like, make sure all the necessary pieces are there for the whole thing to fit together, and that's going to take a lot of work. But it is, you know, I like math problems as much as I like word problems, so that's fun too. And it, like, I think it's helpful for me to lay it out. And then, like, I already have some ideas of what I want to fix. And, like, to go about my day, then I have, like, the timeline of what I'm working on. And just, I'll go away and keep working on it. And that's how most creative people work. So that's not revolutionary. But it is, like, take a look and then step back. And then that's, like, when things get solved. But yeah, I don't have, this, I think from here on out, it's just questions, it's not answers for you and I. Because we're stepping into something we've never done before. And, like, I don't think I've said this on the podcast, I've said this to you, but, like, we know that most creative projects don't succeed. But we have to hold on to the delusion that this one is going to succeed, or it definitely won't. And so, like, it is, there's no room for naysaying. There is just, like, just do it, because this is going to be the best miniseries anybody's ever seen on any TV anywhere.
Otherwise,
and
I mean,
get to work.
Why would anyone do anything if you were like, I'll probably finish this? Like, you won't then. You just know it. Yeah.
And I guess apply that to anything in life. Of like,
I'm going to save this man's life who's dying.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Nothing happens because someone gave up.
Yeah.
Nothing is preordained either, I think. I mean, I know there are philosophies that don't think that. But I think even in, like, world events, we look on, let's choose something from the past so as not to inflame. But, like, I read this because I'm not old enough to be alive when Nixon was alive. But, like, when stuff started coming out about Watergate, people kind of didn't care. And Nixon's approval was still, like, pretty high, well into the idea that he should be impeached. And then it's only after history shows that he was impeached, we think, like, that must have been inevitable, but it wasn't. It was, you know, the act of, like, the journalists who found the story, the prosecutors who worked hard to get him impeached, and you know, it was, everybody's efforts mattered, which is, like, this is, like, low, I don't know, motivation for when you're low. Your efforts matter. And it's not failure and success is not preordained. You really do have to do the work and get Nixon impeached.
Well, I mean, today seems to be a certain amount of people that are writers and I don't know, maybe media that are, and certainly artists that are looking to, I mean, what are we going to just be in despair from now on? Like, there's got to be, when you look at what people are going to think, like you say something like, an example like Nixon, and you look back on it now, you're like, well, didn't people know?
Yeah.
We're looking at it right now and, like, don't people know? Like, of course, there are some people know, and there's some people that don't know, and that's.
And there's some people that will change their mind once history happens.
Yeah.
And they'll look back on it like, oh, I knew all along.
Right.
But they didn't. But yeah, so it is like, and also the idea of art is hard because what mainstream presents to you, like, we're not going to get a deal on NBC. We're just not. The same people who've worked at NBC for, the past couple decades, they're going to keep getting sitcoms on NBC. And maybe, like, there are people working their way up through the ranks, but that's an industry that's fully staffed, I think.
Yeah.
But, like, being number one isn't the only worthwhile way of winning. Do you know what? This is kind of tortured, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's many ways for this project to come out and be a success.
There's many different kinds of number ones.
Yeah, if you have too narrow a definition of success, then, like, of course you're going to fail. I'm not going to be Julia Roberts. It's way too late for that.
Yeah, there's a number of people that, like, I look to that are my idols, and they might be looking at their own career and going like, boy, I kind of bungled that whole thing. I kind of wish I did it this way. How come I'm not, Sting or something?
Which I say all this because it is like just the act of going through and putting down on cards what we already have is also like, it's making clear how much work there is left to do to even finish this first stage. And it's the perfect point to choose not to do it. We're not going to choose that because that's like, what am I doing with my life if not that?
What else am I going to do? That's the artist's credo.
Yeah. And then I enjoy it. I like doing it. And it is like, oh, this is like a pile of problems. There's good stuff here. It's good enough that I'm not discouraged, but like there's so much work to be done. And it's a point at which, like, I think assessment is healthy.
There's discouragement, and then there's just not really being interested in a project. If something goes stale,
that would be failure.
Yeah.
If I was just doing this because I thought you wanted to do this, and you were just doing it because you thought I wanted to.
Right. But when we're making YouTube videos and like we're like, oh great, 5 people watched that one, wonderful. But one person maybe said something interesting about it, and you're like, well, that's enough to go on to the next one.
And we like making it.
And that's the big part.
Even more than that.
I have something else I want to make, so I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
If it was that no one else was going to watch it, then that wouldn't be a reason for me to make or not make.
Yeah.
To make. Is baby gonna make?
Ew. But yeah, that's my homeschool film school for this week. Do you want to go on to commentary?
Yeah.
We have 3 videos for you this week, so we'll start in chronological order of when they were posted. So first we'll start with Getting Old in China, which was formerly called Gym Noises and was part of a larger package, but this is one of the remasters of little skits that we thought didn't get their due the first time around.
Yeah.
And this one it's about going to the gym, because that's what I do. And this one, in the original recording, there was a woman with a basket on these metal casters behind me, so the actual raw film has this like happening the whole time because she's dragging it, and it's so loud.
Yeah, wheels is a generous term for whatever is on the bottom of this basket.
Just metal scraping, which I think the first time around you like hit it in the soundtrack, and then the second time you managed. Well, why don't you address that?
Well, it's just a matter of hiding it in different ways with different effects, kind of like the same thing that we did with one of the last ones that I forget the name already, but it's...
But like you said, with a year more experience, you're kind of better at...
Yeah. Well, it's putting makeup on stuff. You can't make it go away. It's stuck on the audio. You can't just clear it out. There isn't like a separate stereo mono mix or something like that. It's just basically like you top a bunch of other noise on top of it to like fool the ear that like, oh, I'm just in an exciting action-packed area.
Yeah, that noise belongs there and I like it.
Yeah, that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
We've talked like about like when we watch something like Bourdain, we would always watch, and how much actual stuff is being talked over on voiceover.
Yeah, especially in a bar or a restaurant, it's really hard to get clean sound.
Yeah, a market or a food court or something like. They would basically be yelling at each other, and then jump out to a voiceover as quickly as you could.
Yeah, and sometimes like the conversation is good enough that they subtitle it even.
Yeah.
Because live conversation, I know that he thought, and I also think live conversation is more engaging than a sterile voiceover after the fact, I think.
Yeah. It's almost worth it just to try that little bit of effort to maintain it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's one thing, particularly us and other vloggers here in China. I know there's other countries that are loud too, but China is a very loud country, and anyone that's trying to get any kind of audio is just... Watch any vlogger. If they're out on the street, there's going to be a scene where they're just like, and that's a horn.
Yeah.
And that's a baby. And that's a baby yelling at a horn. So there's going to be... it's a nightmare for audio.
Yeah. China. A nightmare for audio. So that was one of the first things we noticed when we moved here. We'd go down like the main street by the center of the whole town. And the stores would all have PAs that were all like blasted out broken.
Yeah.
Because they just like, there's an arms race of like, I'm going to turn mine up, I'm going to turn mine up. And then like, there's no bass anymore.
Everyone has blown out speakers all the way down the street. And it's just yelling distortion.
Yeah. And so, that's the sonic landscape we're working with.
That's shopping. And they're yelling deals at you. Mm-hmm. And you're either going to run away from them or you're going to buy a deal just to get out of there. So it works.
Yeah, sure. Then our other video was Noodles to You, which is an old song of Peter's from...
Yeah, it's an old 8-track
back in
analog.
the day. That we
used...
It's
all Casio tone and cheapo guitar.
Yeah, well, you said we used it in a lot of different soundtracks.
Yeah, in the beginning... our first, I don't know, 50, 60 videos or so before we set up this keyboard and digitally started doing new stuff. We just used a bunch of old cassette tapes that I had laying around from like college and stuff. This is one of the more listenable ones. It's still pretty weird, but it sounds like Noodles to me, so it kind of worked well for being a Noodle soundtrack. Yeah,
so it did go. The song was paired with a video about noodles. Yeah. Among other things?
The original main one was you testing out 3 different local noodles.
Yeah. And then so this music video, that's why it's noodles.
Yeah. And it's just noodles.
Yeah. And we filmed so many noodles. Which, I like noodles. You have noodles for lunch every day almost.
Mm-hmm. Noodle guy.
Yeah. That's the story behind that. And then the third one is a new music video for a new original song called Western Bar, which is something that Peter worked on while I was in America.
Yep.
And is there anything you want to say about that?
Using old footage from Lijiang. Some of the footage we've used before, but some of it was stuff that we hadn't used. And yeah, just there's a lifestyle of a Western bar.
Dirtbag foreigner
that it's in the big cities, it's in the little cities. In Lijiang, it was like living in a little hobbit hole.
Yeah, and there's like what they call the banana pancake trail, which I don't.
Oh yeah.
I'm not exactly certain of what that is, but it is like Westerners who kind of go north and south from Thailand and Vietnam up to like Western China, where things are generally more relaxed. There's some association with drugs, I know, and I guess it is like banana pancakes are not a native food to any of those places, but hostels serve them because Westerners are there. I don't know. If you know what that term means, write it in the comments. Yeah. But yeah, so there is like that lifestyle.
It's a very the Dali Yunnan itself has a I guess it's part of that whole trail of hikers, backpackers, down to beach goers, and it's a crunchy attitude.
And it's definitely people who are like escaping from life, whereas like I would say all the foreigners in Luzhou are very like settled down and like this is their life. It's not like a party that they're having while they don't grow up.
Right. And yeah, we definitely...
To speak frankly.
we got to see within our year there in Lijiang. And follow.
Which is not to say like everybody in Lijiang is that way, but it does.
Right.
Like socially, there's more of a presence of that kind of lifestyle still there.
Well, yeah, and every Western bar has its own. You have your game nights or whatever you get together to.
Yeah.
We had Game of Thrones was a big thing as we were leaving. Mm-hmm. Everyone did a Game of Thrones night, and what was some kind of like red torpedo liquid or something?
Fireball, cinnamon tequila, or cinnamon flavored something.
Yeah. So it's like a drinking game and everything, and y'all sit in these groovy little places with rock posters and broken guitars, and so it's
and then complain about how hard it is to live abroad while you're watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So it's a lifestyle thing that again I think it's in the big cities too. It's just
probably
it's a little less woodsy, but that's what we saw.
Well, there's I think a definite. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna say this and don't take it as definitive fact, but I think in Western China it is easier to find drugs than in the East. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe all big cities have drugs, but it's definitely like that pipeline up from Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Well,
meant it was more prevalent.
For many reasons, including money, only went to the Western bar, once every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
It's not even. But we would hear that a lot of people that were there every night, they would be like, "Oh, good thing you weren't here last night," because the cops came in and shut everyone down, kind of.
Well, they would raid the bar and make everybody take a drug test, and then if you didn't pass, they would extort you for money, which is like. That's not the way the police operate in Luzhou at all. Mm-hmm. There's definitely, like, on all sides, shady stuff going on in Western China. I had a student, even a Chinese person, who was born and raised in Lijiang, and she was working for a hotel. She had, like, a degree in hospitality. And she's like, I gotta move east because it's so corrupt here. I'm never gonna get the promotions because I'm not playing that game. But in the East, it's more cleaned up, and so I'll have like a better chance of on the merit of my work getting promoted.
Mm-hmm. And we were surprised.
It's not just us being like
Yeah. Well, we were surprised that like people always had stories of like, my e-bike was stolen last night. There was a drug bust here. There was a crackdown with some mafia, and we're like, this is a tiny little town.
Yeah, it's like a little postcard tourist town.
Yeah.
With a very seedy underbelly.
We always tried to be home by 10 o'clock, not because of that.
Yeah.
Just so that we could watch TV at home.
Yeah.
But then we would come up the next day and hear like, there was a thing happening.
Yeah.
Oh, don't even tell me, I'm going home.
Yeah. There were some funny stories. But yeah, so that translated into the Western bar song.
Yeah.
Which I like your animated heads on the side. Was very like early animation in music video in the 80s.
Yeah, the whole thing has, I decided...
Like a take on me kind of like shutter speed to the movement.
I definitely have... I mean, that's what I grew up with anyways, but I mean, it's also in vogue now with an 80s retro feel. But I have to wonder when I'm looking at that kind of stuff, like, it's not that it's easy now, but it must be so much easier now than it was back then to cut things out, to do shadow versions and cutouts and stencils and things like that. A lot of that stuff in the 80s, early MTV stuff, must have been done by hand.
Well, they were like expensive and then award-winning projects that today look quaint to us.
Yeah, we can easily sit down and make a Talking Heads video like in this room.
Yeah.
For no money.
But
awesome.
Oh, and the other thing you told me about this video is that you filmed yourself. You kind of knew what the words were going to be, but you hadn't actually written all the words to it yet, which I thought was very interesting.
Because you don't actually have to do a voiceover. You're not actually singing it, so it kind of actually works out better. Because if you're gonna sing it, your voice. I mean, if you're looking at my mouth right now, it's not opening that wide. When you're singing, it might not open up wide either. So you kind of have to like fake. And at that point, things become so exaggerated. It's like.
Well, and that's. I mean. I think it's an interesting detail that you didn't finalize the lyrics yet, and you were able to film it. But like no band actually performs the song live for their video,
right.
Even if it appears they are playing. They are just that they're not using that audio.
And something interesting of not using the finished lyrics that always blew my mind. Looking at the back of the album cover with. The lyrics would be there, and you're like, that's not what he's saying. Like,
oh yeah,
that was always weird. Cause like, well, wouldn't you just go back and finish? But I guess there's many reasons of like maybe you saying that you don't have studio time anymore, or maybe you sang it and you're like, that's actually I didn't want to sing those. I had a different line in there. It actually makes more sense.
Yeah.
So you change it on the album cover. And it used to drive me nuts as a kid. Like, how could this slip by? Then go back and fix either the record sleeve or the recording. Something's got to be fixed here. It's pissing me off.
That's funny. That never bothered me, but I don't actually listen to lyrics. So that maybe that's why that didn't bother me.
But I'm guessing one of the reasons why that happens is that,
you can see in the workflow like it between here and here it changed, and it doesn't make financial sense to go back.
Yeah.
Or there's just no time, or it doesn't matter, or you're trying to do something subversive and you don't want it,
That's true.
In a written record.
With time or with just like effort of like you're like that turned out because I had all the time in the world. I could have gone back. There's some of the lyrics aren't the actual lyrics I wanted. I just sang them wrong when I sang them because I was worried about like the microphone we're using, like we talked about.
Our karaoke mic.
So I'm like forgetting lyrics as I'm doing them, and then I'm like, I meant to sing this word, so you change them in the written one. Why didn't I had all the time in the world to go back and change them? But it sounded good, so.
Yeah, that's the thing with performance, singing and just speaking. Sometimes like you can feel like that take went so well, even though I kind of said the wrong thing. I don't think I could do it again at that level, so let's stick with that one.
Or maybe it's even better.
Yeah, maybe you subconsciously slipped in a word that works even better.
Yeah. But
yeah, there's a lot of reasons why. Performance, we're not robots. That's why it's an art, not a science.
Yeah.
When I went home, this will relate at the end. My first day back in America, after like being up for 1,000,000 hours and poorly sleeping on the plane, the thing I decided to do was bake cookies because I do really like baking. But I also figured like I like the fiddliness of baking. Like cooking is just like throw this in, anything can be right, and I don't like that. But I know the process of like here's how you measure flour to get an accurate measure. And actually, I know like a 20 years old method. The real method is now to weigh it because weight is more accurate than volume. But so I have my processes, but it was like focusing on these fiddly processes was helping me stay awake because I wanted to stay up to the evening so I could start to get on America time quicker. But there was like focusing on the precision helped me like pass the time. But I think unlike baking. Making stuff, making art is not about the precision. It is about like, well, what came out this time? All right, add a dash of this. All right, try for this. You didn't make it, but that was interesting. So that's my comparison.
And it's funny that you do that with baking too, because baking is such an exact cooking science, but when it comes to cooking regular meals,
yeah,
you're always like, what's the right amount of hot peppers that go in here?
Yeah, I mean,
how hot can you take it?
In general, my personality problem is that I'm looking for someone to give me permission. And baking tells you exactly what the instructions are. Whereas writing, no one gave me permission to write this. So I had to give myself permission. And I had to, like, all these processes I'm making up because I find comfort in process. So I need that. But it doesn't exist because it's not precision. It's a mess.
Kevin Smith has a funny story about when he was a kid. Never thought about writing, and his sister would write. And he found her writing and was like, well, what are you doing? She's like, I'm writing a book. Wait, but who told you could?
Yeah. I would totally. I mean, except for my mom told me I could when I was younger. She was a big reason, like, I guess she did, you know. It's weird growing up with siblings that your experience is, of course, going to be different. But, like, my experience of childhood was different than my sister's. Now thinking back, because, like, my mom was always, like, telling me to write. But that's not because she was just like, children should write. She was like, well, you should write. And then she tried it out with my sisters, and they didn't respond in the same ways that I did. And so, like, she tried other activities with them. But I did generalize that as, like, moms always tell kids they should write. But no, it was just my mom told me as a kid I should write. So, yeah, I didn't have to ever ask permission to write, because that was always part of the initial programming.
Well, I think because he went right, Kevin Smith went right to, like, did, like, the government, did the school say? Who gave you permission to do this?
Yeah, mine isn't quite so hierarchical. It's more of like a...
I like the thought of, like, but just because also when you're thinking of, like you're saying earlier, of, like, yeah, we're not going to get on ABC with this show.
Right.
So who told you could do this?
Yeah, who's commissioning this?
Yeah.
No one.
That's part of, like, the modern day. We'll commission it by moving into China, and you'll teach kindergarten, and we'll figure out how to save the right amount of money and hire people in this tiny little town, and we'll figure out how to do it because other people have done it, because technology is amazing today, and even though we're using up all the memory in our computer right now, our bytes are flying out the window, what we conserve and we'll figure out, because we said we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ba-bang.
So we say you can do it. Noodles to you?